Should we open with like a Russian poem?
A Russian. Okay, hit us up with a Russian poem.
I feel like I knew some.
No, you didn't.
Your dad knows some.
My dad knows all
call
of
him
them.
up.
My dad knows all of them.
You know some probably.
No, my dad just.
Your dad can bust them out like.
He stole the spotlight with it.
Yeah, but he almost like yells them, and then you feel like you're in trouble.
Yeah, I started realizing I think he told me like, because when we met, I told you I was like, my dad's gonna talk to you, but he's gonna make it sound like he's angry and yelling at you, but he's not. And I think like it was like last year or something like that. My dad told this summer. He's like, oh yeah, I have we went shooting, and he's like, I was like, Dad, wear these ear protection, and he's like, oh, I have a nerve ending like damage in my ear canals.
No wonder.
I was like, oh, so
that's why you're yelling.
You tell me this after I.
So does every Russian Ukrainian person have nerve damage? Because I feel like everybody yells.
Probably because they don't believe in PPE. They don't believe in ear protection.
I legitimately, when I came home the other day and you were Skyping with your parents, I thought you were like yelling at somebody.
Yeah, but in my defense, yes, a lot of it has to do like with the upbringing, but. I think the other aspect is like with Skype, you're having to be. Yeah. Well, you're freezing. But
I also think that's just the way you and your dad talk.
Oh yeah.
As like a bystander, you're like, oh my gosh, are they yelling at each other? But you're just talking.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a condition thing. I think you have to. It's like anytime like we don't speak German, but if we ever watch some videos of somebody speaking German, you're like, you guys are just.
Why are you guys yelling?
Angry Nazis right now. Like no, they're telling them. Where to go get at the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I didn't understand Russian, at least a little bit, I'd be like, why is he yelling at my husband?
Yeah, no, and I always have to preface to all of my friends and anybody I bring around, but I don't know. I just kind of gave up on it where I'd rather them just find out the fun way. Just have everybody think my parents don't like them.
Yeah, why you and your dad yell at each other all the time?
Yeah.
Well, today was a day.
Today was a day.
Thanks for my nap. Thanks for letting me nap for 2 hours.
I don't have to get you anything for Christmas then.
That was it?
That was your nap. No.
Thank you. What about birthday? Was that all like the 2-in-1 kind of thing?
The 2-in-1.
Birthday and Christmas.
It's funny because you were saying to me how like what's great, and we talked about this. Like you're like, I'm not even going all out, or I'm keeping it super low key.
It was low key.
You're like, I'm keeping it so low key. So backstory
today,
is Jack's 7th. Yesterday was Jack's birthday, but today's the birthday party, so his 7th birthday. And every year you tell me, I'm keeping it so low key. I feel like I only said that the last couple of years, which has been true. Well, you're like, I'm not going to be stressed. And to me, maybe it's the way I interpret it. I'm always like, oh, that means just, it's just we're going to. Just people show up. Here's pizza. Here's some soda. Here's some cake. No, there's decorations, and then there was a inflatable thing that took on like 3/4 of our backyard, and then there was a whole ceremony, and there was just like there was a theme. There like so. My question was mostly like, what?
If that's low key.
If that's low key. What's going? Not even all out, but what's like regular. At par for you? What? Because you had the decorations, you had the theme, you had the
Beckham's party. Like I got him like this whole Paw Patrol cake, and everything was like just to the max.
So the only thing that was of like different about this one is that there was no party favors, and then there was the cake.
That's what I meant by low key.
The cake didn't have the decoration theme on it. It was just a regular cookies and cream cake or cookies, whatever.
Yeah,
that's
already keeping it low key.
That's 8 minutes of extra story time. That's not. I don't think we have the same.
I didn't have activities planned. I didn't like. There was nothing. No party favors.
Well, no, you did because you got a $200 bounce house.
Yeah. But that to me is winning, and it's low key because it keeps the kids occupied for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then they're just drained.
Yeah.
By the end. So
I just find it hilarious. I feel like I don't think it's low key that you have to use the word. I think yours is more of like you're running at like 7/8 capacity, and then the last 1/8 is just
just leaving off the table.
Oh, the last 1/8 is like extra. We're not gonna do the cake printing on it, and the napkins don't match. Like that's your.
The napkins don't match, and
did you notice
I'm getting regular cups.
Did you notice how quickly I disappeared?
Yes, I did.
I told you like last year.
Kids' birthday parties, man.
Well, last year you're like, hey, can you stay and help out? And I go,
well, because
yeah,
last
sure.
year I specifically said it was only boys for Jack's birthday party, and I said drop off, and then almost everybody dropped off, and then but also I told you to linger because you were in charge of that whole obstacle course. Do you remember that?
Yeah, never again am I doing that.
He did like a fun dude perfect obstacle course, and Jack was over the moon about it, but that meant he had to help every kid out on every single
and
obstacle.
that's not the issue. The issue is more of like, I think one or two of your friends stayed and didn't want to drop the kid off. And so it's just basically you hanging out with your friend, and I'm taking care of all these kids. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this again. Like, if somebody's staying here, like, and so you told, that's what you said. You're like, if somebody stays, you can leave. And as soon as I saw one of your friends stay, I was like, I'm out of here, man. Like this, I'm done. I'm going. I went into the garage, turned on a podcast, and ate pizza, and then went to the shooting range.
How was it?
It was fine. It wasn't that great.
Why?
Because I had to bring. I was shooting my long range rifle, and I was sighting it in, and it wasn't working as well as I had hoped for it to work. So I had to redo it again, and with how crazy expensive ammunition is, it's not as easy.
You just weren't shooting well. Is that what
No, it wasn't. The rifle though, because with the long range rifle, it's not like a pistol shot or anything like that, or an AR. It's, these are you're aligning the shots at 100 yards, and you're shooting at the size of an apple, and it's the progression from going from 50 yards to 100 yards. At 50 yards, you're like, oh, this is great, and then you move it up to 100 yards, and something within that scope that I'm using is going weird. So I have to basically restart the process all over again from bare minimum. It's a newer rifle of mine, so I haven't really gotten accustomed to it that well. So
are you trying to say you just bought it today?
No, I didn't buy it today. I bought it last year. It's just I didn't get to really use it last year. I bought it like towards the end of hunting season, but it was just, it's like getting a puppy dog, and you're trying to train it. Yeah, you're trying to figure out what it does and see what the other owner did to it. Yeah. Did the other owner make to do some weird stuff with peanut butter? Like, who knows?
Peanut butter.
I don't know. So today was the first day. I was like, oh, this puppy dog's gonna need some extra
love and attention, huh?
Maybe getting kicked or something like that. I don't know.
Don't ever kick puppy dogs.
I don't kick puppy dogs.
Yeah, well, I don't know what it is about kid birthday parties. They're just so exhausting.
I say, and this is just me.
I already veto whatever you just said.
Next time we take them to a country buffet, like my parents did, and you spend $12, and it's all you can eat, and the food is the food. The food is also the entertainment. and the activity. And the party
and the favors.
Yes, absolutely. That's the way I would vote for it. And that, if you were to embrace that system, I think that's when you would be like, oh, I'm keeping it really low key. Yeah.
So Beckham's birthday was low key, but that's because we had no choice but to keep it low key.
He didn't have a birthday.
He didn't.
We celebrated it as a family.
That's what I mean by low key.
He didn't have a party. That's sad.
Didn't have a party.
The beginning of an epidemic.
Poor thing.
That was the saddest moment ever, actually.
But he had a good day.
He did have a good day, but it was just sad. He was so excited for his little invitations.
It's like the first year I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to send out print invitations because he was really excited about his birthday. And so I ordered the Batman invitations.
Yeah.
I got him the week before everything shut down.
Oh, wow. And he was already talking about them they're coming, and I'm going to give one to each one of my friends.
Each of my friends from school. Mm-hmm. Oh, poor guy.
It was sad.
He took it well, though.
He did. Yeah, he was a little champ.
Yeah. Especially with the model rocket you assembled for him.
Oh, the water bottle rocket? Yeah.
No. That one was later.
That was the same. No, the water bottle rocket that hooks up to. The model rocket.
The model rocket that took you an hour or two.
Yeah, with a full science
put
project.
Together.
It was. they made that thing really cool, but they made it where it's like your kid needs to be either 11 or you need to.
Well, that's why they call it a model rocket, because it's like the whole experience is putting it together. So it is like a science project.
And then you become an adult and you're like, can I pay $7 more for you to put this together?
Can I just not? Yeah. And my 5-year-old child can't put it together. That's for sure.
I wasn't going to want to record today because I kind of was in this funk today.
After your gun issue?
No, not the gun issue. I think it was more of like a social media post thing. Like I reposted something.
Oh, did you get a lot of backlash?
I got an equal amount of backlash to an equal amount of support.
So it kind of messed with you?
It messed with
usually
me.
It doesn't.
It usually doesn't. I think I've matured out of having social media or comments mess with me. I guess it messed with me because I was surprised. I guess I was like more bummed out by like the state of the world, you know, which is so weird for me to say. It's like I feel like I'm Miss Congeniality, where like if I can have
want world
peace and end hunger and all good things, but it was just it was weird because like it was like Tim Kennedy, like he is you know, a Special Forces Green Beret guy and, you know, proud American, and in this climate right now where it's like everybody is like going through the civil rights protest, now it's transforming into like defunding the police to like the police are all bad to
right.
And here I am going like yeah 100% civil rights, like 120% Black Lives Matter, 120%, you know, equality for all, 100% a lot of brutality out there and injustices, but transitioning into a place where it's like all police are bad. And so like here I reposted this thing, just a repost, like straight up, because I was like, man, he worded it so well, man, this is like, and you just have like, maybe I had hundreds of comments, but like it was. So
let's go back. What was the post?
I don't have my phone on me, but it was basically saying like, and I posted on 9/11, which you know, it's a good and bad thing. I guess you can pin it off of good that it's relevant, bad that people are sensitive to that date. But the post was along the lines of what he posted is, again, just reposted it word for word, is like, you know, 9/11, we always say never forget. And the post went along the lines, again, I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, we forgot about the men and women who rushed into harm's way of collapsing buildings. Because he posted like pictures, like 4 collage pictures of like New York City, 9/11, you know, black and white police officers are just in the scenes that were like helping people.
Right.
And the caption was like, we forgot that, you know, yes, there are good cops and bad cops, but we forgot that they still show up. They're brave no matter what the situation is, you know.
So what was the backlash?
The backlash, it was all along the lines of, well, it was evenly split. And I think the evenly split was obviously yes. Oh, sorry. It was evenly split of support and against, but the backlash itself was, you need to be more educated about what's going on in the state of the world right now. Like that's not what this movement is right now about. It was more of like along the lines like, this is why it was bothering me so much. It's like when you read a post, I started realizing there's, no matter how clear it's written, but when you take the time that it's written in and like what politically
and everybody's
is happening,
like preconceived notions, everybody's subjective.
People, I've realized, no matter how clear it's written, people will read into it any way they want
because of their own
When I read into it was more of like when he wrote, like, again, I wish my phone was here and I could read it, but if you want to look at it, go to my my repost from Tim Kennedy or go to his page. When I read it, I was like more embarrassed. I was like, I can't believe we allowed to get us to a place where now we're pushing every good police officer to quit the force. Like, nobody wants to be a cop now. You know, it's embarrassing. I can't believe we got to a place where, you know, before cops used to be heroes, first line of duty, you know, first responders, and now you get your car vandalized if you have a thin blue line sticker on there. Like, I was so upset about that, And the fact that people read into it that way, because the other half of the people read into it were like, thank you for posting this. Thank you that you're speaking up about this. Thank you.
Right. Like a good reminder.
Just a good reminder. Like, hey, I'm a cop and so-and-so. Thanks for doing it. Oh, hey, I have a family cop. Thank you for reminding us. And I think everybody, like, I think for the most part, people are, any white person is afraid to repost something along the lines of supporting cops because they're all of a sudden being rated as or claimed as a racist or a white supremacist or a bigot, whatever. Just like you get pinned into that. Like you support cops, all of a sudden you fall into that category. Like the same way,
so
like
crazy.
But as an immigrant, I think you have a little bit of a different advantage, even though the color of your skin is still white. I think you get a little bit of leniency in my perspective, because you're not just, hey, I was just born in Washington and, and this is where my lineage was. And who knows what my great grandparents did. And so you kind of go like, hey, we came from a communist country to this country where, where both of my great grandparents were executed and martyred for their faith.
Right.
In a communist country, or that went from socialism to communism, and so you kind of get a little bit of that, like, oh, okay, you get the pass here, kind of thing. But so it just it bummed me out that I was like, oh man, like there's so much outrage, and every comment was like, maybe like 1 of every 10 was like, thank you for posting this, but like the majority of the comments were like, stick to your craft,
gosh.
you need to do some education. And what was interesting
Did you respond to any of them?
No, I don't respond to comments anymore. I don't respond to comments at all. But what was interesting is I remember when the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement, where like everybody was reposting a black square on the social media. And I did the same. Like we're joining in this camaraderie, this unity of mourning what has happened, the state of the country, blah, blah, blah. And that day passed, and this posts kind of resumed back to what they were, because it was a really powerful thing. Because at one point, I remember before that day even happened, in the morning I was scrolling my internet, and I was like, none of my posts would show up. It's all black screens. I was like,
that's what I thought.
I was like,
too,
is my internet broken?
Yeah.
Like, what's that? And then I was like, oh, I see this. And so it was cool to join this unity, but like after that, I kept getting all these DMs about people. It's like, hey, you need to speak up about this movement, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what do you want me to say? I'm just a guy who makes
You're
YouTube
never gonna
videos.
please anyone.
Sure, but like almost so, who
somebody.
am I? Like, I have no political knowledge about how
They
to
want
speak
you
on
to
this.
speak up.
What's a white guy gonna speak about injustices that somebody else is going through?
Right.
Like my whole thing behind this entire thing is like, Black Lives Matter, 100, 120, 30, 200%. But what can I say about this? There's not a single person in this world, except maybe 5 races out there, who wouldn't agree that Black Lives Matter. And so here we went from like in May, where people were like, you need to speak up. And I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, what do you want me to say? Like, you have more voice than I do, because you have personal experiences. And then to now, I'm just posting a simple thing. I was like, how's that we have demonized and vilified, because that was the post I was kind of going through. Before, cops used to be heroes. Now even good cops are villains.
Oh yeah.
It's like they're vilified, and now I'm just saying something about like, hey, because the whole post was like, when the buildings are falling, they're gonna come.
They're the ones to come and save.
When you're in danger, they're gonna come. And people are twisting the narrative. Yeah, but they're gonna come and shoot you because you go. And I'm like, listen, you're talking about 5 racists in this world. We're talking about legitimate humanity, and so it just really upset me that is where we are today. Like,
yeah, it's rough.
Personally, I think it's sad that I get cops who are like heroes, like messaging me, or family members going like, hey, thank you for supporting the Second Amendment and Thin Blue Line. I'm like, no, thank you for every day, coming up to a car that you pulled over and don't know if they're going to shoot you or not.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Thank you for being more braver than I. And so it was just kind of bummed me out that like a repost that I did was like,
especially you said like one that was well worded and
really well worded by a guy who's in the military. Because now people are talking about defunding the military. They're talking.
Gosh.
And the problem is there's this situation that's happening where it's like there's a fine line between like what people are saying, like defund the police and blah blah, and then what is actually meant by it, right? Because I'll get because I'll repost. You'll see my stuff. Like I'll repost stuff, be like, I can't believe this city is defunding the police completely, and other people will DM me, be like, they're not defunding it, they're just reallocating the funds. It's like, but you don't understand. Like when you say one thing, whatever's happening, regulations in your city, a whole different thing is happening. Like you're just meaning one thing, but a whole nother thing is actually happening.
Yeah, and nobody knows that. They just hear defund.
They're, and so like you say one thing, but the meaning behind it is another thing that everybody else is taking. And that's the part that's scary, is like nobody wants to be a cop now. So when you go call, like there's all these things, they're almost comical, but there's all these like things that are hitting like these funny news where people are like, one guy called the police because somebody stole his like defund the police sign from his front yard. These silly things. One other guy, he was like his kid was a defund the police protester, and then he was home alone and heard some noise, so he called the police. Like
that's hilarious.
It's just this double standard. Like I don't get it. Like what's going on? So it's just sad that
she's just going along with it because like that's what everybody. A lot of people in this nation are doing, and you're just following the crowd.
What's interesting, Tim Kennedy was actually talking about this because he was on Rogan, and he was just like one of the most recent episodes, actually the 9/11 episode. And Tim, I mean, special forces guy, so he's very I think well versed in like politically what's happening. And one of the things he said is like this is really, a lot of things are being orchestrated by China and Russia, where it's like, if you want to, the way he kind of phrased it is, if you want to create harm to a country, you don't really have to go there and start a war. You can start disunity, because if the whole point about that country is like, we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of protest, and if you come in there and you stir chaos in there and turn people against one another, then you're kind of crumbling the place from the bottom down.
Yeah, you don't have to like start a war or anything. Right. You've already created.
You've created that chaos between the people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, that's so interesting, because that's why they have those Russian bots, where like there is research that's come up with. There's this there's a company in Russia who has bots. That these are all fake accounts online who stir drama within the United States, the right versus the left versus the right, just to create outrage.
Yeah.
And
it's working
politically.
Apparently.
So this is like and so I was just like, after seeing stuff like that, you kind of look at it and be like, we are all being torn against one another. But like the saddest part of it all is like,
it's working.
Where does it stop now? Like, where does it stop that? Listen,
what is next?
We started with this pandemic with the first responders were the heroes, to now there are the villains, and you're like, what's next? What's next? When you're going to be in danger, or
no, is it like healthcare workers next?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's why. I mean, that was my little rant, but that's why I wasn't kind of up for it, because I was like, I was in a little funk.
Just had yeah. It's hard to get out of those too, because I mean, people attack you personally, and so you do take it personally. It's hard not to.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's why I never post anything personal.
Well, there's a small percentage of it. I think there's certain type of influencers out there who will play a personal character on social media, and what they're like, I'm the patriotic one, or I'm the slutty one, or I'm the, you know what I mean? Yeah. I should have been the slutty one. That's what I should have.
You would have got a lot more less backlash.
I think so. Well, I would have got a lot of dick pics, but no, but I think there's people who play a certain persona, but with me, like, I just always post stuff that is very relevant to me. So if it's like, if I'm out with the family, it's family stuff. If it's building, it's building stuff.
Literally your daily life.
It's my daily life, and my stories, I think, are a better explanation, because it's like, if I'm I went shooting today, took pictures of shooting. I didn't plan some kind of Instagram post to go get it for a picture for shooting because I'm the Second Amendment guy. No, I was shooting, so I brought it. If I'm dirt biking with the kids, I'm dirt biking with the kids. Like, the way I treat you and the way I treat them and the way we interact, that's the way I am. And so, defending the Second Amendment and all that stuff, that's very real, near and dear to my heart. And so, where were you, if we're going to talk on the perspective of 9/11, where do you remember where you were when you found out about 9/11 and that the towers were attacked?
I was already at school, and I believe in 7th grade. Were you in 7th grade?
I think I was in 8th grade, because I was, I think,
you're
1 year ahead of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in 7th grade, and we didn't, like, in my family, we're foreign, so we didn't like. I feel like a lot of people and still do. They'll wake up and like watch the news before school.
Yeah.
And that's like their routine. We didn't do that. We just like woke up, scrambled,
right,
got out the door.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the kids in my class already knew like what had happened because they watched the news. And so I just remember like hearing like something happened, some kind of like attack. No idea what it was, but like I remember going to my first period and like they had the TV on and like watching it.
So you didn't know, even when you were watching it, you didn't.
I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what is happening? And then it took like, a couple of like watching everything go down because they had every single class. Because it was 7th grade, so we had 8 periods in the day, so like 1 hour. Every single class had the TV on, and like after I think like a couple of periods, I was like, oh my gosh, like somebody's attacking our like buildings in New York. And so then I got it, but it was like crazy because I even felt just coming to school, you felt like this tension and this air, like just this sadness in the air before I even knew what was going on. You really
felt that in that little.
I remember that clearly. It was just like
and
this.
And you were in
weird,
Portland at that time,
no,
or Idaho already?
It was in Idaho.
It was in Idaho.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people knew way before me, and so I felt like I was like the last person to find out.
I was.
Were you at school too?
I was at school. It was morning. We were, how like in middle school you're standing outside of the school before like the whatever bell rings to like open the door so everybody can walk.
Yeah, I never did that. I was always late.
Oh, you were.
I was running to my first period class.
It still holds true to our life now.
Which wasn't my fault. It's my whoever drove me to school because I didn't take the bus.
Your foreigner parents.
My mother.
And I remember, so we're standing out there, and because I walked to school, so obviously you show up there quite a bit early. And we were all standing outside huddled, and somebody came up to me. I remember my classmates, and he's like, "Hey, the Twin Towers were hit." I didn't know what that meant at all. Like I was like, "Oh, whatever."
I don't know what that means. Yeah,
I
it's like a
whatever
12-year-old kid. Yep. You're like, I don't know what Twin Towers is.
I don't know what that. I didn't know what they symbolized. Yes. I didn't know what this was.
Same.
They're just hit. It was. And school happened, class started, and I don't remember the rest of the days. I don't remember I'm pretty sure the TVs were on in every classroom and all that stuff. I do remember later on as the weeks went on, we had more open discussions in classrooms about like Bin Laden and all this stuff, but like that was just like a little bit. But what's interesting is none of it really made. Okay, see, here's a little backstory for like if anybody's listening. Irina, if anybody's listening,
anybody out there,
hello. Irina was raised in a Ukrainian household. I was raised in a Russian household, and the way these Slavic families or immigrants, for the most part, they traditionally kind of work is like when they immigrate here, because language is such a barrier, they tend to, and culture is such a hard thing for them to kind of fit in with. They tend to, like the parents that move here, they tend to find other communities that are Slavic and kind of integrate in those communities.
Yeah, kind of keep in their little bubble.
In their bubble. And it's the best way to explain like Chinatown in any kind of metropolitan area, right? Like you just kind of like, this is the food that we kind of grew up eating. This is the culture that we kind of had.
Language,
so you kind of keep that there. And there's goods and bad parts about it. Personally, as some like me, I think there's more bad because it's good because you come in and you have like a way to integrate. But the bad part of it is like you don't really get to integrate into the culture that's here. You stay within. You almost made your own little Russia here.
Yeah, so it's like, why did you come here if you're just gonna be in your like little bubble,
in your own
not
little
learn
bubble.
the language,
that's
not
huge.
learn the culture.
Yeah, that's huge. It delays the learning of the language, and we see a lot. Like my parents, they didn't start really learning the language fluently until like I moved out of the house.
Till we had kids, I feel like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They were almost forced because we used to interpret for them for everything. So it's a good and bad thing. But that's just kind of how it was. And so we just, all of our after school hangs. So like I never really hung out with any of my American friends after school because my parents were like, we're going to, we're like in youth group. So like, here's the Russian church that we went to, and here's the youth group that you were there, and you're kind of integrated, and this is a small community, and these are the girls you can date from. And so it was just a very secluded kind of thing.
It's exclusive.
Yeah. And it's I'm not supportive of it at all. Like, I mean, kind of growing out through it, because it's like, you kind of almost get a little brainwashed where you move to this country for the freedoms, but then you almost like just hide in the corner where you're like, I'm just here so I don't, so it's easy for me to live, but I don't want anything to do with this.
I'm going to have the freedom, but still be in my culture and language, and not even
I want to date this chick for 30 years, but not marry her.
Yeah, seriously.
So that's just kind of our personal take on it. And so kind of like in context, so because you don't know much about American history here, here's this thing happens, and at that point both you and I, we spoke English very well, but it didn't resonate with us, the importance of it. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I started realizing like the freedoms that I have here, you know what I mean? Like the fact that I could start a business, the fact that I'm not persecuted for anything, the fact that I could voice my opinion, the fact that I as long as I work hard, I can pursue my happiness. But it's all dependent up to me and how much I want to work. And I didn't realize the symbolism or how symbolic the 9/11 attack was until I did some research. And I remember finding out that it was like the biggest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. Yeah. And that blew my mind. Like that was... Like, I wish I knew that a lot earlier, because I think it would have resonated a little more, because I was like, oh, well, what's the big deal? 2 planes. Yeah, a lot of people died. And the World Trade Centers, they symbolize, finances and all that stuff. But I was like, oh, this is ginormous.
Right.
Like, this is Pearl Harbor. Huge. Like, I think it was like 2,900 or 3,000 people almost that either died or suffered in this. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea.
I think I was on the same page. It was kind of like it didn't resonate, and I just didn't understand. Yeah. Because I wasn't educated. Even though, maybe in middle school you do learn about, maybe that's high school, you do learn American history, but I feel like, I just didn't know. Like, I knew New York was a state. I didn't know what the Twin Towers were. I didn't know, anything about that. And so it was like, oh, well, okay, so
it's I think that's
especially the age. I mean, the age was a big part of it too.
But for the most part, if you ask the majority of people from my kind of walks, I've realized that anybody you ask here in the United States about history, even American history, they'll all tell you the same thing. I'm not really good with history. Yeah, everybody will say that to you, and so that's why I started like doing my own kind of putting it on myself to like kind of relearn some of the American history
research
that
for yourself,
that we went over, that I didn't pay attention, or that I went in one ear and out the other ear in high school or middle school. So now I'm like digging into these books on Audible, because like now I know it's gonna actually resonate with me and stay in my brain. But
and I think a lot of it is that you're just not like in middle school and you're just not interested in it. And it's you just...
We're probably the only country here that can say that, because I remember when I did a little backpacking in Europe when I was 21, I think, they knew more about American history than Americans themselves. I mean,
just so sad.
The classic American, not the ultra patriotic, but like it's super sad. It's such a disservice, because there's so much we could have learned from.
Right. And I feel like now that I'm an adult, I find it so interesting and fascinating, all the history, because it like you realize how America was shaped, and things make more sense where we are now. But when you're 12, 13, you don't care. You just
you think the world's so huge and so big that this piece of history is just a small little notch on the belt somewhere out there.
Right. But, you're like, I don't care about this. Why does it even pertain to me? Is when you're that, at least for me at that age, all you care, you care about yourself. You care what your next, like, you're so in the moment, in the present. You don't care about the past or the future. You're like, whatever's happening right now. So
especially if you're a 13, 14-year-old boy trying to figure out what your body's doing at that point.
You're like, that's probably rough for you during that time.
The Twin Towers? Are you talking about the Twin Towers?
Yeah. Which Twin Towers?
Which Twin Towers are you talking about? So it is. So now it's great. Now it's great to be able to go and learn and understand it.
It's crazy. And then we have a a child born on that day.
Yeah, we do. 9/11 baby. 9/11 baby,
Yeah.
and he's turned 7, and it's really great that it's just.
I wonder how that's gonna be for him in his.
Do you think it's gonna affect him somehow?
No.
Oh.
No, but I mean, I think it's just such a negative day.
Yeah, but you're not thinking negative day like day of Holocaust or something like that. It's. But we also have to put it in right. I mean, it's a horrific day. But what I mean by it is, it's not Day of the Dead kind of thing, right? It's like to him and the next generation. Hopefully, we do our part right, and we instruct and teach and educate him. But I think there's also a huge part about where like there's these kids that are like they weren't even born that day. So
I wonder if it's gonna be the same kind of feeling as. Like for us, Pearl Harbor, it was a huge day, but if you weren't living in it, you feel more like disconnected from it, right? So I wonder for them if it will be like that.
Correct.
We remember that day so clearly.
Correct.
But for them, they weren't
correct.
born yet.
I also think that because the difference between Pearl Harbor and 9/11 is we have so much more footage of actually what happened.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You see 5 different angles of the planes going at the towers. You see people covered in the debris.
Yeah.
You see, and so if you pay attention, I think you can paint a pretty good picture of what happened. Of like the same information that we saw, that you and I saw,
right?
Versus with Pearl Harbor, I don't know as detailed information is available apart from like documentaries visually. Yeah. I mean visually.
There's like
visual
no
information
video
for sure.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like, I don't know. That's kind of where like I was today.
Yeah, it seems like today's a little bit more of a somber podcast.
Well, no, I mean we could turn around. One of the things we could always talk about that I was going to save in my back pocket is about where does inspiration, I guess, come to you from?
Just in general.
Well, what kind
of design?
Well, design, not inspiration of like what are you going to do with your life, but like just inspiration of design. Because you're actually a good person to ask this question because you walk into a blank canvas on every house. Mm-hmm. So here's a house, here's a blank canvas. It's either something that has lots of shelves, not enough shelves, lots of empty walls, not enough, lots of awkward spaces or no awkward spaces. Like it's just such a blank canvas, and you don't have really especially with staging, it's not like you have, okay, all of this furniture goes into this house and that's it. So all we have to do is set it up. It's just, there's still a personal touch to everything. And
and each house is so different. I can't bring the same stuff in to every house.
And if the builder's doing something too, like if the builder has like a modern lamp that's over the chandelier, you can't be like, oh, we're going to do this farmhouse thing.
Yeah.
Like that's...
No, it's too modern. Yeah. And so every house is so different. So I still have to buy, furniture and accessories for each house because they're so different. And obviously you want to stay with the trends too. So
where does your design, like with me, I'll answer this question like this. If you're going to say, how do you know how to like remodel a certain bathroom and what look you want to go for? To me, my design, or maybe it's a bed that I'm building or a dining room table. The way my design process for the most part works is I, for the most part, procrastinate. Not because it somehow gets my creative juices going. It's because I am so lazy about planning for builds.
I also feel like you don't have the time.
I just don't have the time. That's why I'm lazy, is because I don't have the time. But if I'm proactive about it, and if I make room for it, if I say, hey, this Thursday, I'm going to set 2 hours aside and I'm going to think about this. I'm going to devote that part of my brain to just start thinking and jotting and looking for ideas, then it'll work great and the ideas will come. But for the most part, my process has been just kind of wait till the day before and then designate a certain time slot to actually looking up for inspiration. And then the way inspiration always comes to me is always through like Google or Pinterest, and it's usually between 3 to 5 images that I find, and I try to morph or bring one thing from each picture into one overall design. So it'll be 5 different designs.
So you consciously do that.
So I'll go, I like the legs off of this table. I like the layout of that top there. I like the contrast of that from this image number 3. And so from that, I'll almost that way I'm not like copying it one for one, but I think
because that's what inspiration is. I think ultimately is you take something that you like, but you make it your own.
Correct. So like I always have in the back of my mind, and tell me if you have the same, but like I always have a general feel that I have.
Yes.
I don't have the vision in my head. I have a feel for it first.
Yeah.
And so like I'll walk in, I'd be like, I want it to be grand. I want it to be slim and sleek or low to the ground. I'll have those kind of feels for it, but I don't know colors. I don't know patterns. I don't know which part of this is going to be the wow factor or the like, oh, that I'm so glad you spent the extra time on the chevron pattern or whatever, you know what I mean? Because it really takes the distance. So what's your design process on just a blank canvas?
I think first it's always, so with staging, it's always the house. If it's I have to see, like, is it more modern? Is it modern traditional, farmhouse, whatever it is. And then I like rack my brain to like figure out if I have furniture that works for that space. But ultimately, like when it comes to actually like purchasing furniture and design, I think a lot of it, is like Pinterest, or you're trying not to yawn, and I noticed it.
I swallowed my yawn.
I saw it.
I swallowed it.
You won't do it at least.
You saw my eyes like twitch a little bit.
Yeah, they got watery, and that's how I know. And then you did this like mouth thing.
You're like, he's having a stroke or he's yawning, but doesn't want me to see it. Good thing it's not a stroke.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for sticking around. Honestly, a lot of it is like the designers I follow on Instagram. Like I'll notice a piece of furniture or the way they styled something, or just the general, like you said, like feeling. And I'm like, that's like inspiring to me. I don't want to copy it, but I want to, I like it so much. I want to do something similar, but make it my own. And so I think a lot of it is that. And then, but with staging, it's a little bit different because I have to use my inventory that I already have. And so to find inspiration is always just, okay, what is this house? What is the feel of this house, the vibe, the style?
So what happens? I'm more like, I'm more fascinated because I know with like a living room or something, you could start experimenting with things where you go, okay, we'll put a rug down first, then we'll put a coffee table and then a couch, and then you're like, that doesn't match, and then you'll just move one of the three of the items. But what's more like I think fascinating to me is taking a blank shelf, and I think that's where more of like the artistic side comes out, where you're able to create that shelving, like you'll have built-in shelves, right? 5 shelves, all white, big thing, open thing. I don't know. I feel like you have this artistic way of styling all these shelves that have books and shapes and flowers and vases, but somehow they're not just placed there. They're just like...
It's very strategic. It is. And that comes from experience and learning and researching. Yeah, science.
And freedom and
all of imagination.
And America and... the Constitution and the troops and the troops
on both sides. It's true. Yeah, it is. I think a lot of it was experience because I go back and look at some of the shelves I styled like 5 years ago, and sometimes I'll just be like, "Oh, that didn't look very good." But back then I didn't know. It just took that experience and researching and following these bigger accounts that have been doing it right, and where I'm like, "Oh, that looks so good." Okay, they have like books here. They have a vase. Okay, maybe I can kind of...
So is there a science behind it? Is there a formula?
A little bit. The science is this book, Shelf Styling 101 right now?
I guess, yeah. I mean,
welcome to the course of Shelf Styling 101.
First of all, I want to say thank you
for joining the class.
Give yourself a round of applause for taking the first step.
You know what? Pat on the back. First step to
the whole round of applause is too aggressive.
Yeah, it is too aggressive.
It's too
the clap.
It's too toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I think so. You're right.
Too much of that.
Snap.
That's less
snap for yourself.
It's less chauvinistic. Yeah.
Has a little bit of a
flair
to it. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit of a science behind it because it's almost like you want it to flow. So when I style, it's always like if you have a big vase, you put something smaller next to it and you create this like up and down kind of flow.
That's a good way of
creates movement in the eye, and it's like visually really aesthetic.
It's interesting.
Pleasing.
I've never I knew there had to be something behind it. I've never once.
You don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to. When you have a shelf, you don't want everything to be the same size, because then it just looks like something's not right. It almost feels like.
What about spaced out? What if it's like big thing space, big thing space?
No, because then it's like a bunch of big things, and if they're the same height, it's like there's something about that, like the wave pattern of like up, having something tall and then low and then tall, that creates like this feeling of like, I don't know, unity, I guess.
It makes sense, and the reason why it makes sense is because whenever I would edit like video or audio, or back when I used to do it, you would take your high peaks and low peaks, and you're trying to make sure that everything, like even when you record with the microphone, everything has a smoother kind of waveform, as opposed to a spike and a breaking point and a peak and then drops back down.
Right? That's so interesting that even with sound, that's like that. So with sight, sound, it's super interesting. But I just learned over time, and then also I have my go-to like basics. So you start out, you always have to have books, you always have to have some kind of greenery and vases, and then like some kind of bowls, objects, and so as long as I have this like bulk or like a couple bins of this stuff, I can create like a shelf styling and
would it be
happy with it.
Would you be up for a challenge like in our next house if it was like the office, where I was like, okay, part of the shapes you have to use some of my guns to put on the shelves, and you have to make it like aesthetically appealing, where you're like,
challenge accepted.
Like the way this bazooka is flowing with this AK. AR-15, it's just, I love how that works.
Yeah, it's the way it just flows. It just creates, the movement in your eyes.
Grenade.
Yeah. And then you put greenery just on the side.
Right.
Coming out of the grenade.
You take the pin out of the grenade, you put like a flower inside.
Just a flower.
Spread love, not war. That's interesting. I'm actually glad, because I don't think I've ever asked you. I've always told you that I think it's impressive how you make these shows, but I don't think I've ever asked you how. But it's interesting that there's a science behind it. I always thought you have like a kind of like Tetris or something like that. Square, rectangle,
you just
triangle,
kind of piece it in.
And you just kind of piece it in. But I knew there had to be more than that, right? Because no two shelves have ever been the same.
No,
and they all kind of flowed.
Yes. And you want them to be always
like
different.
Beads now, and you'd have like I guess you'd have texture and color and pattern,
and that's another thing. You don't want like two of the same color next to each other. If you're gonna have like two vases that are the same color, like spread them out, or two vases that are similarly like shaped. You don't want them next to each other, so like if you have a couple of shelves, like make sure they're spaced out, and using a lot of like just height adds a lot. So if you do like candlesticks, that creates like, that's your height right there, and then greenery adds a ton.
Would you say it takes you a lot of time to do this? Because like it's
not anymore. It used to, because now I have my go-to. Like I said, I have my go-tos. I have like you always have. I always start with like usually books, because that's what I have a lot of, and if I want them to be spaced out, I don't want like one shelf of books and then the next shelf like empty. And so I always have like my starters and then my vases, and then the last things are always like the little trinkets, that I put up.
Interesting.
But there is. It used to take me a lot longer to do them, and I mean, even in our own house, like here, the shelves, I feel like sometimes I'm still rearranging them every now and then, because I'm like, oh, I don't really like the way that looks.
I think it's so great that whenever you figure out the science behind something, of the methodology, if you can like articulate it to somebody, I think you can now give so much value to somebody. Because I mean, everybody who's listening to this, I'm sure they're like, I don't know what to do around a shelf, and they've seen your shelves, and
that's all I get, and that's a common question I get is like, how do you style shelves? I don't understand.
Queen of shelves.
Yeah, and to me, like, it's just learned. Yeah, it was a very, it took a while for me to learn it, but I also love styling shelves. It's probably like one of my favorite things.
Do you enjoy it that much?
Yes, I really do. Oh, because you're taking these empty spaces and you're creating like
it's a piece of art. I think.
Yeah, you're creating art from it. Yeah. So like, styling a living room is awesome, but like shelves are just so artistic. Yeah, I feel like.
No, I think I would. I would give you the credit that when you're done with a set of shelves, it looks as if that was a picture or print that you bought.
Yeah, and that's like the point of it. Yeah, that's why they have open shelving, is for that reason. So I enjoy it because to me it's like a challenge. Like, okay, what can I do this time that's like different from any other times I've done?
Yeah,
open shelving.
That's cool. So yeah, I definitely don't have. I definitely don't have rules of design.
I would like to see you style a shelf sometime. We should have a challenge.
Yeah, you'd build something. I style something.
No.
You use a table saw and not cut your fingers off?
Yeah. I mean,
with proper training, you won't cut your fingers off. But, without training,
I haven't had training.
You definitely are on track.
I hung a mirror today, so.
You did. Good job. Good job. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'll style one shelf and you style another shelf and see.
Well,
I'll always win, but I would like to see you try.
Sure. This is your way of trying to get a flex on me. Hey, look at this idiot. Oh, yeah. You did fine, babe.
Yeah. Well, so cute.
What are you going to say next? We should record an episode.
There, so
we should record an episode. And for me, I was like, I ran out of bowls, so I put a gun on.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a gun.
This is bullets
next to a book.
I didn't have beads, so I put bullets on the ground.
Oh. Aesthetically.
Yeah, no, I definitely think in building don't have rules that I think about lines. I think the only time is sometimes spacings. If it's like drawer fronts. So if it's the exterior of a thing, like a cabinet or something like that, and there is drawers and a door, I try to make sure that some of those lines kind of match each other somehow. But for the most part, I don't have that. Like right now, one of the big things I'm wrestling with is like in this bathroom that we're remodeling. And it's like the tile came out great, right? Like we love the tile pattern, and then like the vanity and the backsplash with the chevron, great, love it. But then now I'm tackling the shower part, and the shower is gonna flow, and I'm like, do I take the tile? Do I take the tile and bring a whole different type of tile? Well, now you have 3 different tiles in the bathroom, or do I take the floor tile and continue it, which to me in my mind works. But then it's like, do I take it all the way up to the top? Well, the backsplash is all the way to the top. So now are these things wrestling? Right. So I know how to ask myself the questions, but I just don't know the right or wrong solution to.
And sometimes it takes doing it and seeing it.
Lay tile all the way up.
Tile all the way up and then see if you like it. If you don't, take it down.
Take it out, yeah. No, but like biggie. I would have to, like, for example, the way I'd answer this tackle this problem is I'd probably sit online, look at a couple of shower pictures and see the contrast of the tiles from the floor to the shower to the backsplash. See what it would look like together, and then see if there's a middle ground, if they're reusing the same tile, right? Like, so just see what the rules are. And what works, So I definitely don't have the rules.
You have to do the research, but you do the research. And that's what I do. Like sometimes if I am trying to figure out what I want to do in a house, especially when it's a big house, like a parade home, and it's like a big deal, I don't want to just bring anything in. And so a lot of times I'll create like a mood board from the furniture that I already have just to see what it would look like together. So I'm not going in there just thinking it's going to work and not.
You're really good at mood boards too. Like I've seen some of your mood boards, and what's interesting about these mood boards is the way you like layer the rug with the table and the light, the lampshade and the lamp and
all the details,
the pictures. And what's interesting is I've always noticed like certain textures from the rug matching or complementing something from the couch pillows or something like that, like and
it's funny because I don't consciously do that sometimes. I think I almost subconsciously do it because it's, to me, I just look at it all together and think, oh, that pillow like doesn't work for some reason. But to me, I don't think, oh, it's because of the rug. To me, I just see it and something's not working, so I take it out, try something new.
Put a gun there on the couch, and you're like,
put the gun works. Like that. Yeah, the AR looks so nice. Instead of that second throw pillow, you just throw the gun.
I'm slowly conditioning you to let me buy another gun. This is where we're kind of going with it.
As if I would say no.
You're making a lot of really good points about guns right now. I feel like for the sake of design and business, I should buy an AR, like you said.
Yeah.
I'll do both. I've been wanting an AK, but I'll get an AR because I love you. And compromise.
Start slow.
Compromise.
Yeah. I feel like so in general, like design too, there is kind of a science behind a lot of things. So shelf styling, but even things like, and these are the things I learned. I actually had to Google, like in the very beginning when I started staging and design, like how big of a rug do I need in a living room? What, does the furniture go on top of the rug or behind the rug? Like, how high do I hang artwork? What is the spacing between artwork? Things like that where you don't really think about. until you're doing it. And then you realize you've been doing it wrong.
So you almost were like, you're like, there has to be some kind of rules about this.
And there are.
Yeah.
So like if you go on Pinterest or some even designers' blogs have just general rules that work really well for.
Like beer before liquor, never been sicker.
Yes.
Liquor after, yeah.
You're in the clear.
In the clear, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, exactly that. So the same type of rule, you just apply it to design.
Science.
It is. I think a lot of it is, and then over time you just already just know. So like when I hang artwork now, I just like ballpark like eye level. Okay, that that works. Or a mirror. It's crazy how much just experience will make you comfortable.
No, and it's
the same with you. Yeah.
And I would also add to that. I would say if you have these rules to follow, that contributes to the comfort, right? Because now it takes so much off the table. We were like, this is a big space. I got a blank canvas. But when you were like, okay, so let's start with like like you said, your approach to shelves. You're like, let's do books, and then after books we'll do bowls,
yes.
and then after
and then
that,
you're not so overwhelmed. I feel like
right, yeah.
Because a lot of times you can be overwhelmed when starting like just a blank canvas. Yeah. But it is experience. Now I always start with like living room stuff, and then I move on to the bedrooms. And so you have this like process that you go through.
Yeah. Well, let's send these folks off.
We don't have any news articles for you guys today.
No articles today. We covered the whole. We did a little 9/11 conversation there. Next time we'll have some news articles. Next week we'll talk about some design submissions. Make sure you guys follow us on Apple Podcasts or if you're already listening on Apple Podcasts, thanks. Spotify, we're available on Google Podcasts. If you guys like video podcasts, this video is available on YouTube. Follow that. Most importantly, guys, like it, share it, subscribe. We only grow if you guys share and tell people you like it. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That way the old algorithm will say, hey, you guys make decent stuff.
These guys are cool.
These guys are cool.
We're all cool.
Well, folks, if you have any questions, submit them to hello@thenextdoorneighbors.com. Other than that, you know where to find us on social media. Send them off, Miss M.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.